Hello you guys, and welcome back to my channel. I have been looking forward to sharing this video for a really long time now, and I've just been trying to find the time to film it. It wasn't something that I wanted to do kind of off the cuff. I wanted to kind of do it properly. So I have made myself some notes, but today I am telling our birth story. I do have some footage and some photos and things that I'm going to share throughout. Yeah, really looking forward to sharing this with you. As I said, I have made some notes because although it's a day I will never forget, it's also, there's some detailed timings and things that I wanted to share with you that will go along with the clips that I've got. So I guess let's get started. I went into labour with Evie at 37 weeks and 3 days, and to be honest, I really wasn't expecting to labour that early. Particularly as a midwife, I kind of knew that first time mums tend to go overdue, so I really wasn't expecting it to happen at 37 weeks. I don't really think I had any signs, even like the day before, that anything was going to happen. The day before I went into labour, actually, I filmed my what's in my hospital bag video, which I will link up here. So you can see how I was. I was quite breathless, but I don't think I thought anything was different. So yeah, no real signs. I've got some photos that I took the day before, which I will put in now. But essentially, I spent the day before filming my what's in my hospital bag video, and then I watched quite a lot of Harry Potter sitting on the birthing ball. I had some Clara Sage oil in my diffuser. I also have a photo where I'm sitting watching Harry Potter and editing my nursery transformation vlog. So if you haven't seen that, I will link that up here. And I also had been drinking my raspberry leaf tea for a little bit, and I was eating dates. And I think that night I did some hand expression, which I'd started at 37 weeks. So I'd only done like 2 days of it, but I think I did some that night as well. But nothing really was giving me any signs that the next day I was going to have a baby. The morning of, I had slept in a little bit, obviously pre-baby, about to have a baby. I wasn't kind of setting an alarm or anything, but I got up just before 9 o'clock and I went to the loo. And when I sat on the loo, I basically felt a weird pop followed by some fluid. And as a midwife, that is about as convincing as it gets in terms of have my waters gone. If you felt a pop and you felt some fluid go, it's a pretty convincing story that makes any midwife think your waters have gone. I was in complete denial. I thought there's absolutely no chance that that is my waters. So I put a sanitary pad in and I started my day as normal, went downstairs. Matt was working from home and I said to him, not sure, my waters might have just gone, but I'm really not convinced. So we'll just see. And I was walking around the kitchen feeling, without being TMI, feeling my waters coming out, and I was in complete denial. It's as convincing as it gets, and as a midwife I should have known that's definitely my waters, and I was just so convinced that there was no way my waters were going to have gone at 37 weeks. So yeah, I was really unsure. But after about half an hour of walking around the kitchen and feeling this fluid coming out, I rang the hospital. I spoke to one of my lovely colleagues there and said, look, you know, I think my waters have gone, but I'm also in complete denial about this. So can I come in? Can you check? So I went up to the hospital. What have I got? I got to the hospital 5 to 10 in the morning. I have a lovely selfie, which I will insert here, in the lift on the way to go and find out if my waters had gone or if I was just spontaneously wetting myself. So went in, saw my lovely colleagues who were really convinced, as I should have been, that it was my waters, but because I was so not convinced and needed kind of reassurance that it actually was my waters, they also did a SROM test, so that is spontaneous rupture of membranes test, and it's basically, it looks like a COVID test. They do a little swab in your vagina and test it in the fluid, and it's done basically exactly as the lateral flow tests are, and it looks like a lateral flow test. I will insert a picture here. And that is a positive Schramm test. So that is saying, yes, definitely detecting actual amniotic fluid on that swab. So my waters had definitely gone, but I wasn't feeling any contractions, any pain, anything at all. So much so that I'd actually driven myself to the hospital and left Matt at home. There was a reason for that. We didn't want Matt's paternity leave to start if it wasn't my waters. It was a Friday, and he at that point only worked until lunchtime on a Friday. So we kind of thought, look, if we can get to lunchtime, then his paternity leave wouldn't have to start until the Monday. So there was method to the madness, but I did drive myself to hospital to get this check. And if I had gone into labour on the way, that would have been a really interesting situation to have found myself in. And I don't think I really thought that through at the time. But had the test, it was definitely my waters. My colleague did me a lovely sweep to try and kind of encourage things. I say lovely, sweeps are never lovely, but she did a good sweep for me. Sent me home with some nice oils and things to try and help me go into labour. Obviously, there is, after your water's been gone for more than 24 hours, there is a slightly increased risk of infection to the baby. So I knew that I needed to get this baby out in 24 hours if I wanted to avoid induction. So yeah, went home, got home, absolutely adamant, right, I need to go into labour now. I need to do all the things that I can do to get myself into labour. Hello you guys. So I think this might be the start of whatever video I end up putting out, which includes the birth of our baby girl. So my waters have gone. They gave me a hell of a sweep. I'm getting some back pain, but otherwise I'm reasonably comfortable so far. So I'm just sitting on the birth ball. I've obviously come back home. I've got some oils in the diffuser, and I'm having some toast and drinking lots of water, and we'll just see what happens over the next 24 hours or so. But yeah, we're gonna be meeting her this weekend. Oh my god. So I sat on my birthing ball. I had some lovely Inco pads from the hospital. I put Harry Potter on, I put the diffuser on, I rubbed some lovely oils that the hospital had given me into my bump, and just tried to kind of get myself in a place where all the happy hormones were flowing. So I just went to my safe place. I had Murphy cuddled up at my feet, and Matt was about to finish work. It was all very chilled. So that was what, 20 past 12. I think at this point I was starting to feel some kind of niggly tightening, nothing painful at all, but just kind of, yeah, tightenings. And I had been feeling Braxton Hicks for a while, so I think I just kind of thought it was that, but they definitely weren't painful at that point. Matt finished work, lunchtime, and I think it was about 1:30, 2 o'clock. I said, right, we're gonna go for a walk, because that's what I tell every single woman in this situation to do, is go for a walk. So we went for a walk, and by this point, so what, 1:30, 2 o'clock, I was feeling tightenings. I wouldn't say they were really painful, but they were starting to be uncomfortable, to be achy. The walk was exactly what I needed, because we got about maybe 300-400 yards, and Matt ended up saying, look, I think we need to turn around because I'm not sure we're going to get back. Because I was having to stop probably every 3 to 4 minutes to hold on to whatever I could hold on to and breathe. So whatever I did to go on that walk, it made a difference, and I was going into labour. So it was still early labour, and I know early labour, particularly for first time mums, can be a long process. We got back to the house and I ran a bath because I was getting quite uncomfortable, but again, I knew that first time mums, first time labours don't tend to be quick. So I thought, right, okay, I'll run a bath, because again, this is advice that I give lots of women in the early stage of labour. If you're struggling with discomfort, get in the bath. It can really help. The hot water, take some paracetamol. So I did all of this. I also at this point, or slightly before I think, had called the birth centre again just to let them know that I was starting to feel things, but I didn't need to go in just yet. So they were in the loop, and they knew, you know, I might be coming into the hospital at some point. So I have some footage of me in the bath. I don't know how much of this I'm going to be able to show you because I'm in the bath. I've got my clothes on. But I will insert what I can. So I was in the bath for a little while. But I was definitely getting more uncomfortable. I couldn't talk through the contractions anymore. I was having to really focus on my breathing. Yeah, it was really like starting to struggle. So from the bath, I rang my colleagues back on the birth centre and said, look, you know, I'm getting really uncomfortable here. I don't know if I'm in labour or if this is just the early stage, but I think I need to come in. I think I need to find out what's going on and if this is labour or if I need to kind of suck it up a little bit because it's going to go on for a bit longer. So I put on my TENS machine, which you will have seen in my hospital bag video, which I had only bought a few days earlier. Put on my TENS machine, and actually TENS machine was brilliant. From the moment I got out the bath all the way until I got in the pool at the hospital, I used the TENS machine, and I would really recommend it, particularly one with a boost button. So that really helped. So I used the TENS machine and we got in the car and we drove to the hospital. We had all the bags in the car, so it was just a case of like, there was a couple of last minute things that Matt had to chuck in, but otherwise it was just a case of, yeah, getting in the car, getting to the hospital. We got there and my lovely colleagues had reserved me a really lovely room, and they showed us in, and at some point I had an examination, and I can't remember if it was as soon as we got there or just before I got in the pool or something, but it was around this time, so it was what, 4, half 4, 4:45, something like that. I had an examination and I was 2 centimetres dilated. I wasn't under any impression that I was about to have a baby. I knew I was uncomfortable, I knew it was getting worse, but I didn't think it was, you know, happening. So they did say at that point though, they were going to watch me, but they didn't think I was in kind of active labour as of yet. At about 10 to 5 started running the pool because I was getting much more uncomfortable, so I think they kind of made the call at that point, probably wasn't going to go home. The pool was running absolutely fine. I have some footage of me bent over the pool, just definitely getting more uncomfortable still with my trusty TENS machine. I didn't have anything else at this point, just my TENS machine. I'd had some paracetamol, but that was it. And then about 5:30, probably 25 to 6, I got in the pool. The pool really helped. I remember feeling so much relief from getting in the pool and the weight being lifted off because the bump is so heavy. Just, it made such a massive difference for me. About 6:15, I finally said, right, no, I need some pain relief now. So I had the gas. It was only about 12-13 minutes after I started on the gas that my lovely midwife said, right, no, I think we're in full-on active labour now. This is labour, and this is part of your training as a midwife, is you watch women and you try and see from their behaviour when they are in active labour, and a lot of it is on frequency and length of contractions, but there's also behaviours that you look for. So at this point she said, no, active labour. So that was at 6:30. 7:20, so less than an hour after my midwife said, yeah, this is active labour, I started really being very concerned that I couldn't do it anymore, that I, you know, was probably going to need a bit more pain relief, that I was really struggling. And I also started feeling a slight urge to push. I was worried about how long I might have left, because first time mum, gonna most likely be a longer labour than that had been. So they didn't examine me at this point, but I was definitely, within 10 minutes of that, I was definitely properly pushing without being able to. It's like when you need to vomit, you can't stop yourself. It's completely involuntary. So I was definitely fully dilated. So I had basically done my whole active labour in 50 minutes and got myself to fully dilated, which is insane. So although I'd been having kind of mild tightenings for maybe 6 hours, I only had the gas for an hour before I started pushing. So I don't know, I was really shocked, and I just kept thinking there's no way that I am at that point. I must just be not coping well. There's no way that I'm at that point. But I was. And I pushed, I was in the pool, I pushed for a very very, very long time. As is often the case, first time mums, you know, they can push for a couple of hours, but by that 2-hour point we need to be getting to the point where this baby's coming. And up until that point I was still having the Doppler listening. I wasn't needing any continuous monitoring. Evie was coping really well with the labour, and it got to about 9:30, so I'd been pushing for 2 hours, and at that point it was like, yeah, no, we need to escalate this. And I know what the guidelines are. I know that at 2 hours we probably need to be getting a doctor to review to see if there's any reason that baby's not moving, or if it's just that I'm absolutely knackered, or if it's a case that actually she's not in a great position, and so she's going to need a bit of help. So I remember 9:30, my midwife said, right, we need to get out the pool now, we need to be starting to go to delivery suite. And I totally understood that, so that's absolutely fine. However, I was so uncomfortable. Getting out of the pool took so long, and I still feel a little bit embarrassed, because obviously I was being looked after by my lovely friends, and apparently, you know, when she was telling me to get out the pool and I just said I can't do it, she knew that I wasn't lying, that I really felt like I couldn't do it, as in physically get out of the pool. So she had to be quite firm with me, and I really didn't feel like I could get out the pool, but I did. Got out the pool, went to the loo, and then got on the lovely transport gurney from the birth centre up to delivery suite. And I've got to say, it's the only point in my labour that I was really aware I was at work. Was going through the corridors, getting in the lift and going up to delivery suite, where I had spent every day of my working life for a very long time, and I was very aware that I was at work at that point. However, you know, it wasn't a problem, and everyone there is amazing. All of my colleagues who looked after me were fantastic. So I went into a room and was seen by one of the doctors, and essentially between me being absolutely shattered from pushing for 2 hours and a little bit of Evie's position, she came out with some swelling, but on the back of her head rather than here, it was on the side. So we think that she probably was a little bit on the wonk, so I was pushing and it just, her head wasn't in the right position to come out with my pushing, unfortunately. So we ended up making a decision to go for a ventouse delivery. There was a discussion between whether it was forceps or ventouse and what was the safest option at that point. And I voiced my own preferences, and obviously if there'd been a medical reason not to do certain things, then I would have taken recommendation on that, but I knew my preference was a ventouse delivery over a forceps delivery, and because the doctors considered that to be a safe option, I would have loved to have had a completely unassisted, completely unmedical, lovely water birth, but actually in that moment the most important thing was getting her out safely. After 2 hours, once we got up onto delivery suite, she was showing some signs of being tired. I was exhausted. So at that point it was like, help, get her out, just get her out. We need, you know, I need some help here. So obviously any instrumental birth is both the doctors and the woman, me, working together. So I still had to push, hello, I still had to push, and they just helped, and she was born, and it was just amazing. There's no feeling quite like holding your baby for the first time. And it was just so special. Oh, and she was fine. She came out absolutely fine. She came straight onto my chest, and within half an hour she had her first breastfeed. I obviously needed some suturing and a little bit of assistance with the delivery of my placenta, but all absolutely fine post-birth. Stayed on the delivery suite for a few hours, and then my colleagues offered me to go back down to the birth centre where I had started my labour for my postnatal care. So Matt, me and Evie all went down to the birth centre for our postnatal care. We basically did a bit more breastfeeding and then had a bit of sleep. I don't actually remember sleeping. I think I stared quite a lot at this tiny little human that I just pushed out my body. I don't remember sleeping much. I think I probably slept an hour or two, but I don't really remember sleeping. I remember looking over and seeing Matt and Evie both asleep, and just feeling very, 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 very lucky. And then in the morning, it was about, so what's that, 9:25. Matt was just getting her dressed, ready to go home, and then we left the room 11 o'clock. So 12 hours, barely, but 12 hours after Evie was born, we packed up our stuff and left and went home. It was the most wonderfully positive experience. I will never, ever, ever forget it. That is our birth story of having Evie at 37 weeks and 3 days. She was actually £7.9, so I'm really, really glad that I didn't go too much further. I would say that it had been identified that she was measuring, not big, but big for that gestation. My midwife had picked that up at 37 weeks, and I did have a scan booked, but we never made it to that scan. So she was just ready to come. I will be sharing my breastfeeding journey at some point, because we are now 19 months in. I don't think we've got much longer, to be honest, but it's been an amazing experience with highs and lows, as every journey has, so I want to share that properly. So that's our birth story, and I really, really hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, please like, subscribe. If you've got any comments or questions, please leave them below. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you very soon for the next one.